Welcome, Scottsville Christian Church, and those who are outside watching us from up in Caledonia and Tennessee and different places all around the country that have been showing us that you're watching our stuff. I wanted to welcome everybody. Have a different kind of message this morning. It's more of a want to kind of give a little bit of announcements and some different things that's kind of come about. We had some things that have happened this last week, and we had a couple of our folks that got COVID, and we're struggling with that because the leadership was all in a room together. So we will be putting off coming back to church in our regular services until December 13th. And that's going to be our set date. The ladies' tea going to be moved back and some different things. But we'll talk about that here in a second. I got a really neat note from Miss Pat Elliott. And she wanted to kind of give out some extra special words. And she sent me a little thing. It's called the recipe. And the recipe says, a cup of friendly words, 2 heaping cups of understanding, 4 cups of time and patience, a pinch of warm personality, and a dash of humor. Mix all your ingredients together. Keep the temperature low. Do not let it boil, whatever you do. Season it to taste with the spice of life. And then serve it in individual molds. She's so cute. She's so funny. When I love, talking with her, and she's just full of wisdom and joy. And when I saw that, I thought, I've got to put that out here and let everybody hear. So it sounds like something I would like to eat myself. It sounds like a good thing. The recipe. All right. Well, some of our announcements. Again, our person services and our ladies' tea are going to be moved back to December 13th after church service, and our annual elections are still going to go that day. We are going to send out a newsletter here within this next week. We'll be sending those out in the mail, and you'll have our ballots that are going to be going out with the people who are going to be on the voting rolls. Going to have a couple that are coming up. I've got one new deacon, a new elder that will be running, Rick Stillwell, and Dave Jr., Elliott Jr. He's going to be coming in, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, as a possible deacon. So I'm really pleased that he took that and is going to try to run with that. So that's going to be wonderful. And then a couple other things we'll get to in a minute, but we'll have Angie is going to be running for treasurer as well. You're going to be sent out in the newsletter with those ballots. The budget is going to be drastically different because of the COVID situations and the issues with our giving that's been coming. We're hoping to get better once everything starts to kind of get back to normal and people are starting to come back to church. But our offering has been very low lately, especially in these weeks when we don't have anyone coming to church. It seems like some folks kind of forget to send their offering in and until they come in and we get back to church. We'll probably have those folks been holding those offerings back, and that's wonderful, and we appreciate that. But it is something that's becoming more and more of an issue with having to do the online services instead of doing the in-person services. So be praying for that. Our budget is definitely something that we pride ourselves on, and we want to always be good stewards for the Lord. Brenda Smith is going to be retiring, and I know many of you know already. I'm very sad on that. It's we won't be at this time bringing in another secretary. We're going to cut some things. We're going to cut the bulletins down and do the newsletters and those kind of things. I'm going to be doing a little bit more around the office to kind of maintain some of that. And I believe if Angie gets into treasurer, she's going to be doing a little bit more of some of the stuff Brenda was doing to put the money and the offering and the tax stuff into the computers and those kind of things. So that stuff is all going to be kind of taken care of. Jerry did ask to step down several months ago, and she's graciously stuck around until she could get Angie trained. And I tell you, Jerry's been a blessing to the congregation. It's been a wonderful thing to have her. She's been one of the most amazing treasurers. She makes sure that every single number is actually where it's supposed to be. She's just been tremendous in what she's done for this congregation, and she needs to be commended for such. And we do appreciate her on that. She has already started training Angie. Angie's very well qualified. She does crunch a lot of numbers at her job in management over at GE and stuff that she's done in the past. So that is something that won't be a difficult thing for her. It'll be a challenge to add that into her workload, but it's something that she's willing to do. And we didn't have any other volunteers, and she said if nobody else volunteered that she would step up and do that. So praise God we had a volunteer that was willing to do so. I'm sorry also to let everyone know that this last week we got a resignation from Joanne as well. She was saying that she would rather go ahead and step down as the piano player. I want to encourage her and tell everybody, please get out there and encourage her. Send her out cards and thank yous. She's just been a tremendous soul for us in this church and done a lot of good work over the years, and we do appreciate her and her talents. New Year's almost here. It's almost on us, folks, and we need to kind of try and love on each other a little bit. This COVID-19 event has been attacking the Lord's church. It's been really difficult with all the stuff that's been going on. I've been talking to many other churches all across the country, and I will say that we are blessed to have not lost as many as we could have. Many other churches are losing half of their congregations. I think we've lost maybe a third of our congregation right now. We were running 70 before COVID, and now we're hitting around 40. And it's been terrible to watch what some of these folks are dealing with. Some of these churches, these mega churches, are losing hundreds and hundreds of people from their congregations. So we are blessed. God really blessed us tremendously during June, and gave us the money to be able to pay off the church building or the gym, and so we are a debt-free congregation, and that does help when it comes to the offering. But it is something that we still struggle, because when you're losing, several people, we lost a couple families, it becomes a struggle. And it's something that we need to, as a church, be praying about, as far as getting out there and inviting and trying to get some more people in this church. And hopefully, maybe we can get some of the folks that are at home sending in their offerings and those kind of things. So, let's try to remain faithful and do the things that we've always done. We have been blessed as a congregation. This building is full of wonderful and generous people, and we had a great, generous offering that was tremendous from Jim when he passed, and that made all this stuff happen. And praise God, we are actually blessed for the future, and it's going to help us a lot. Last thing, before we open our Bibles, I would like for you all to please spend time going to the War Room. Go to www.scottsvillechristian.org and spend some time on the War Room. We are not utilizing that the way that we should. That war room is set up so that we have a prayer line that is set up for people who have prayer concerns and needs. And we're supposed to be hitting those and praying for those folks and hitting that little block on there that says, I prayed for you. Let us know that you're praying for the people and that you're coming in and checking this website out. Bobby and I have created this website. It has just been a neat thing for those who never had it before, and they're just now learning how to get on it. I know we've been teaching a couple of the folks in-house how to get on the website to be able to watch the sermons and that kind of thing. And it's kind of neat to be able to have this technology available. It's going to get better as we go. If we can continue financially to support the website and keep it going, then it's going to have opportunities to be able to hopefully put some online giving and those kind of things for like the people who go to Florida and those kind of things they can give online. We're hoping to look at some of those options. We're just kind of trying to figure out what's best to be the best steward that we can possibly be for the future of the church. So be praying for us. It's not an easy thing. Brenda leaves the office. Like I said, our weekly bulletins are going to go away, and we're going to need that war room to be able to know who we're praying for. That's going to be our prayer list that we maintain on Sunday mornings and Wednesday nights. They're not going to have that regular prayer list on there, so we'll try to keep it updated through the war room. And instead of being able to see those on Sunday morning in your bulletins, you're going to have to go on the war room and be able to see who we're supposed to be praying for. So please get on there. Final thing, Brenda and Dwight have gotten COVID, and Brenda was here in the office, and Dwight was in a meeting with the elders. We were in our college class together. And so now we're all quarantined, and the leadership is completely quarantined for the next, 10 days, I guess, or however long it is. And that's why we're going to have to push back our opening for next Sunday. So we can't do it for the 6th of December. We've got to push it back. I really apologize, but be praying for Brenda and for Dwight. Dwight just had these treatments, and he is going to be hurting terribly if we have a bad case of COVID that he ends up with the negative end of things. It could be devastating. So please be praying for Brenda and Dwight. They're just, special people to us. And I just, I hate losing Brenda as a secretary. I can't even bear the thought of losing Brenda as my friend. So be praying and love those people and do the best we can to make sure that we're lifting them up. So let's open our Bibles, and we're going to go to 2 Kings. We're in our last 2 Kings sermon. It's amazing because we had 5 weeks in November. So this is probably an interesting sermon to many. It's going to hit some details that are going to really kind of blow your mind a little bit. It's going to make you think about what it is that God has done and really pay real close attention to some of these details. I'm going to hit you with some things that you probably have never considered before. Many people don't even know were in the Bible, and it's really kind of fascinating. So pay real close attention today. Get your Bibles ready, and you can stop and pause or do whatever if you're losing track or you want to go back and reread whatever we're going through. But it is really fascinating. This is probably one of my most interesting places in the Bible. This is something that I got from The Eternal Struggle from George Fall. And when I saw this and realized it, I was just like, whoa, mind blown. It just threw me for a loop. I never realized this stuff. And And all of a sudden, George taught me this, so probably 2004, 2005, when was the first time I had ever heard this, and I was like, what in the world? I had never caught it, and it just blew me away. This is something that I've taught for many years as a preacher. I went right back and started teaching my church, this stuff, and as soon as I heard it, and I became convinced of it, because it is something that I've studied through Angels and Demons, and through George and his Eternal Struggle class, and it's amazing, the stuff that God has done, and that would just sometimes get slips right through in our minds, and we don't catch some of this stuff. So let's look at this, 2 Kings 11, when Athaliah, however you want to pronounce that, the mother of Ahaziah, had saw that her son was dead. Now, remember last week, Jehu had killed the two kings, right? And now he's the king in the northern tribes, and he had killed both the two northern tribe kings, and the northern tribe king, and then also the king of Judah. So his mother found out what happened. She saw that her son was dead, and she rose and destroyed all of the royal offspring. Think about this. She killed her grandkids, right? She literally killed her grandchildren. But Jehosheba, the daughter of the king of Joram, the sister of Ahaziah, had took Joash, the son of Ahaziah, and stole him from among the king's sons who were being put to death, and placed him and his nurse in the bedroom. And so they hid him from Athaliah, and he was not put to death. Very important. So he was hidden with her in the house of the Lord 6 years, while Athaliah was reigning over the land. And now in the 7th year of Jehoiada had sent and brought the captains of hundreds of Carites of the guard, and had brought them to him in the house of the Lord. And then he made a covenant with them, and put them under oath in the house of the Lord, and showed them the king's son. So he finally, after 6 years, this about a 7-year-old son of the king, had now finally been brought out. And he commanded them, saying, "This is the thing that you shall do. 1/3 of you who come in the Sabbath and keep watch over the king's house, 1/3 also shall be at the gate, sir, and 1/3 at the gate behind the guards, shall keep watch over the house for defense. 2 parts of you, even all who go out on the Sabbath, shall also keep watch over the house of the Lord for the king. And you shall surround the king, and which will, with his weapons in his hand, and whoever comes within ranks shall be put to death. And be with the king when he goes out and when he comes in." And so the captains of hundreds did according to all that Jehoiada the priest had commanded. And each one of them had took his men, and who were to come in on the Sabbath with those who were to go out on the Sabbath, and came to Jehoiada the priest. The priest gave the captains of the hundreds the spears and the shields, and have been King David's. He had taken this weaponry early on when he was still running from Saul. He had taken a bunch of shields and spears and stuff, and he took them and stashed them, in which were in the house of the Lord. And the guards stood each with his weapons in his hand, from the right side of the house to the left side of the house, by the altar and by the house all around the king. And he had brought the king's sons, the king's son out and put the crown on him and gave him the testimony. And they made him king, anointed him, and clapped their hands and said, "Long live the king!" And when Athaliah had heard the noise of the guard and of the people, she came to the people in the house of the Lord. And she looked, and behold, the king was standing by the pillar, according to the custom, with the captains and the trumpeters beside the king. All the people of the land rejoiced and blew the trumpets. And then Athaliah tore her clothes and cried, "Treason! Treason!" And Jehoiada the priest commanded the captains of the hundreds who were appointed over the army, and said to them, "Bring her out between the ranks, and whoever follows her put to death with the sword." For the priest said, "Let her not be put to death in the house of the Lord." And so they seized her, and when she arrived at the horses' entrance of the king's house, she was put to death there. And Jehoiada made a covenant between the Lord and the king and the people. And they would be the Lord's people, and between the king, also between the king and the people. And all the people of the land had went to the house of Baal and tore it down, and its altars and his images they broke in pieces thoroughly, and killed Mattan, the priest of Baal, before the altars. And the priest appointed officers over the house of the Lord. And he took the captains of hundreds and the Carites and the guards and all the people of the land, and they brought the king down from the house of the Lord, and came by the way of the gate of the guards to the king's house. And he sat on the throne of the kings. And all the people of the land rejoiced, and the city was quiet, for they had put Athaliah to death with the sword of the king's house, or at the king's house. Jehoash was 7 years old when he became king. The 7th year of Jehu, Jehoash became king, and he reigned 40 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Zebiah of Beersheba. Jehoash did right in the sight of the Lord all the days in which Jehoiada the priest instructed him. And only the high places were not taken away, and the people were sacrificed and burned incense in the high places. So they did everything but get rid of the high places, and the people were still acting a little stupid. But all the years that the priest was still alive, this kid reigned, and he did good. You know, he was a good king during that time, and then he went stupid in the end. And, you know, we'll see later, you know, if you read on, that he ended up being killed by some of his own servants. They actually attacked him and took him out. Little history lesson needs to be brought up. Adam and Eve were told that the seed of the woman would actually take down Satan. Oh, I need to go this way, get in the center of the shot here. They were told that the seed of the woman would take down Satan. In Genesis, I think it was chapter 3:15, maybe. Satan, I believe, started to use his evil rebellion at that point to corrupt the Lord's seed of Eve. Okay, because that's the seed of Eve was going to be what was going to be the one that was going to stomp his head. Okay, and he was going to bruise the Messiah's heel. Genesis 6, as we studied way back when I first got here, is a place where we see this interesting thing called the sons of God. The sons of God. And Genesis 6 is fascinating. We're going to study these folks. I believe that the sons of God refer to the angels. Okay? Now, I have to give you a disclaimer here because there are many people who are scholars out there who do not agree with me. And I kind of look at it as I have studied this thoroughly, and I fully believe everything that I am saying is without error. Okay? I could be wrong. This is not a test of fellowship. It's not something that you have to believe to be able to study with us or to worship here or anything like that. We just want everybody to know that we could be a little bit off here, but I believe this to be absolutely true over my full understanding of the Bible, the Word of God. Genesis 6, chapter 1 through 7, it says, "Now it came about when the men began to multiply on the face of the land, the daughters were born to them, that the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful. And they took wives for them, and whomever they choose. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not strive with man forever, because he is, or also is flesh. Nevertheless, his days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men. They bore children to them. Those were the mighty men who were of old, men of renown. When the Lord saw the wickedness of men apart from the earth, that every intent and the thoughts of the heart was only evil continually. The Lord was sorry that he had made man on the earth, and he had grieved in his heart. And the Lord said, I will blot out man, and whom I have created from the face of the land. From man to animals and creeping things and birds of the sky, I am sorry that I have made them." Like I said, this is not in any way, shape, or form a, thus saith the Lord that you have to believe this, or you can't be my friend, or you cannot worship here. It's not test fellowship. This is not part of salvation. So this is where Preacher Jimmy has done a lot of study and done a lot of diligent work in this end of the things, and taken classes from teachers who teach both ways on this Son of God, and I respect both teachers, both sets of teachers, because I have multiples that have taught the way I'm about to teach you, and I think that they are the ones that I believe are right. I love the others dearly that I've studied under, and very much respect their work, but I just think in this particular case, they're off. This particular one time, it is something that I believe that I have accurate here. Hermeneutics is the study of ancient text, and one rule that we have in hermeneutics is that if somebody writes something somewhere, then he writes it again in another place, then it means the same thing most always. So if you have a word that is a unique word that people use, or a unique terminology, or something that, like a sentence that somebody uses, angel of the Lord, daughters of men, and sons of God. I mean, we're just going to talk about this one in particular today. Then if it's written one way by the same author, then more than likely it's going to be the same by the other. It's a principle of this hermeneutical science. Hermeneutics is the science of ancient literature, of interpreting ancient literature. Took a class in this a couple different times, 2 or 3 different classes in it, and this is a principle that's always handed down and taught. And so I'm using this principle of hermeneutics to prove where I'm coming from. Like I said, don't have to agree with it, but I believe I'm accurate. Job is a book that talks about the meeting of in the heavenly realm when the Lord, I think that is Jesus in this case, because Satan is involved and he's evil at this point. And at this point, we know that God the Father can't be in the presence of evil, so it had to have been Jesus. It was the Lord that we're talking about here, Elohim, calls his angels and Satan to give an account. And Satan was specifically separated from the angels, so he is not one of the sons of God. He is separate from them. I believe he is a seraphim, maybe, possibly. But there are all kinds of different angelic beings. There's cherubim, seraphim, sons of God, Zoes, and different things. So don't get caught up in that. They're all angels of some sort, but the sons of gods are specific to a type of an angel that we're talking about here. The writer calls them the sons of God, unless the sons of Seth, which is what the other people who believe this sons of God are, what they were the sons of the children of Seth and the children of Adam, and not angels. They believe that these were just normal people who were passed along, the children of Seth, but he would have said the sons of Seth, I think, and not the sons of God. But they believe, these people who are along this thought, believe that the sons of God are the children of Seth and not the children of angels. Okay? So, the established tradition was actually put forth in Job that Moses had written it. Okay? Job was the first book of the Bible that was written. It was actually the oldest book of the Bible. And it is believed that Moses was the author of that. Now, Genesis would have been the first of the Torah, of the first 5 books, or the Pentateuch of the Bible. Okay? And in that case, Moses wrote Genesis as well. He was the author of that. So he was the author of Job, called the angels the sons of God. We do not have any kind of way of saying that the children of Seth, the human beings, were able to enter into the realm of heaven at the throne room of God with Satan and be able to walk up there with him and give an account of what they were doing on earth. So it doesn't work that way. No one in their right mind, in any way, shape, or form, have I ever read anywhere, nobody believes that the sons of God in Job are talking about anybody other than angels. But if it is Moses who wrote it, and Moses is the one who used this phrase in the original writing of Job first, then you have to look at the fact that it is probably going to be used in the same way when he uses it in Genesis 6 to describe the sons of God looking upon the daughters. Now, people try to say, well, angels can't have sex. That's not what Jesus said. He never said like that. He said that we will be like the angels in heaven, not here on earth. And angels, we know, can take human form because we saw that when he was with Abraham, and when Jesus came down with Abraham, and I do believe that was Jesus, and the 2 angels went into Sodom and Gomorrah, and they were considered, these beautiful guys came down, and all of them wanted to have sex with him, with these guys, and this and that. So it was something that was a normal thing in those situations when they saw these sons of God, these angels. And it was kind of a weird situation. They were creepy, but it was something that happened. And we have it as something that they could do. They wanted to have sex with them. Okay? And that's kind of a unique principle here that we're seeing that when we see Abraham and these men in Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay? It was something that these were men. They were physical men. They had physical bodies when they came down, and they were angels, and they were there to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah and get Lot out. Okay, so it was very important that we see that is set forth. If you read in context, that's how we study our Bible. We always read it within the context of the Bible. Okay? You need to see, as Moses is describing the sons, finding the daughters of men, that is us, the men of the earth, humankind, as beautiful. The angels, I believe, were the ones that fathered the Nephilim, which is right there in verse 4. It talks about the Nephilim, that they were there on the earth, and in fact it talks about them having sex with the daughters, and then the Nephilim, we had these children, they bore children to them. And then it describes the mighty men of renown. So they're talking about the Nephilim there. And you might be something crazy in Hebrew that I don't know, and I could be wrong in that, but if you read it in the English, that's the way it looks to me, that it's talking about the Nephilim. Okay, there may be some kind of odd thing in Hebrew that I don't study Hebrew and I don't know Hebrew in any way, shape, or form, so I may be off by that. That might be where I am different with these scholars, because some of these guys know Hebrew, and that might be where I might be off, but I don't believe I am. Nephilim were the giants, the men of renown. This would have been David and Goliath. When both David and Goliath were considered men of renown, or mighty men of valor. Excuse me. Okay. This is it's a specific title that was given to them. They were to get many of these. I believe that this is where we get a lot of our mythical creatures. When we see that the gods had come down and had sex with women, and we have these gods like Zeus and Odin. They came down, they had sex with women, and we got Hercules and what was the other one? The one who fought the Kraken with the Pegasus. I can't remember what his name was. You had Thor, which is the god of war. Hermes. All these different gods would have sex with women, and their children would have these special powers. Some of it, we would see Cyclopses and all these different half men, half horses, half men, half bulls, the Minotaurs, and these types of things. These are legends that came from this generation, this time, when these Nephilim were alive. And I believe that it's the stories that have been told down through generations that these people were turning into these mythological creatures. And they were talking about, gods coming down, and of course these angels wanted to be worshipped as gods, and therefore they turned around and made these people worshipable. So they called themselves gods, even though they were not gods. Okay? They were not God in any way, shape, or form. These are mythological, demigods at best. I've shown my little thing where Hulk beats up Loki, the son of Odin, and, throws him down on the ground. The puny god, it's one of my favorite movie scenes of all time. This is actually loaded right in there. This is what we're talking about. In the Old Testament, when they're talking about these Nephilim, these were the same ones that we're talking about here. Okay? The children of Noah, grandchildren, those couple of generations would have lived for hundreds of years, and these guys would have been considered men of renown because, they're hearing, that, hey, well, we're over here in Greece and this different things, and these men lived for long generational times, and all the great things that they did when they were creating this stuff after the flood, right? It was crazy, some of the stuff that was going on. But I believe that it explains this idea of the Nephilim to a T, and the fact that the angels found the women to be beautiful and came down and had sex with them, okay? And they had children, and they were creepy crawlies, and they were these nasty, what we see in our modern stuff when we go out and we dig up, people, and they keep saying, oh, well, we have a whole, other group of humanoids that we call, what do they call them in the archaeology, the Neanderthals. Well, what if the Neanderthals were Nephilim? What if they were, children of angels that were blended with humans? Okay, now you're going to think I'm crazy, but I want you to find the logic with me here. Okay, it seems crazy, but it is something that I believe was what happened. We see in Noah, he finds dry land. He starts over the human race with his boys. Then we come to Abraham, or Abram, who becomes Abraham, the father of many nations. God names him separate. And then his son Isaac and Jacob and Judah, the grandchildren, are the promised seed, and they're going to bear the Messiah. Okay? Well, I think what had happened was Satan came in and tried to outbreed the seed. I think before the flood, he tried to come in and have his angels go out and take down the seed of the human. Well, Noah, he was pure. His kids were pure. His children's pure. Their children were pure. And it just kept falling down. It gets to Abraham, then it gets to Jacob. And all of a sudden, Abraham gets a promised seed. Okay, he's going to be the one who's going to have the seed of the nations. And one of his is going to be, the king of all of creation, right? And the Messiah. Then we have Jacob, and all the way down to Jacob and Judah. And Judah was given that promise that it was going to be one of his. That's why his tribe was always the one who went first, to prove that they were the ones that were going to be the Messiah, and that they were the ones who, were always the warriors that went in, and it was going to be one of them that was going to be the warrior king. And that was one of the things that they had for the Messiah, that he was going to be this great battle warrior. So it was always the tribe of Judah that led every battle. Okay? Then a few more generations go, and some outside women kind of come in. We have Ruth and Rahab, the harlot. They come in and they become grandmothers to a guy by the name of David. Okay, David comes in. He ends up becoming the second king of Israel over Saul. And God has him ordained by Samuel. We just went through that when we were going through Samuel. David is promised that he will always have one of his on his throne. One of his children will always be on the throne of David. And that throne of David would be one that would reign through eternity. That there would be one of his seed would reign on the throne of David for all of eternity. Okay, now it didn't reign every single minute of every hour of eternity, but it did reign because Jesus ended up being one of the seed of David. So it ended up reigning through all of eternity. That's how it all came about in the end. But here's the thing, it went from David, and then Solomon was given that same promise, so it went to the sons of Solomon. Okay? Well, now we have a couple of generations down, and we have these people that were kind of evil. Satan tries to breed these people by the name of Ahab and Jezebel together. And they try to take out the seed of David. Because seed of David and Solomon were promised to be the one who's going to bring the Messiah. There was always going to be the Messiah on the throne. The king was going to reign on the throne of David. Would be one of his seeds. So they knew, Satan now knows, it's one of David's seed. It's not just the Israelites. But Satan kept trying to kill these people off all along. He was always going after these seed that were the ones within this line of Judah and different ones. It's fascinating that now we get down to Jezebel's daughter marries one of the sons of Solomon. Okay? He gets killed, and she's the queen mother, and now she's saying, I'm going to kill off the seed of David. I'm going to take them out. And she begins to kill off the royal family at that point. And she kills all of them but one. One. It gets down to a baby, less than a year old. A baby. And all of a sudden, this woman who works in the priesthood with her father's a priest, she gets him and takes him and the nurse and hide him in a bedroom so that this baby doesn't get killed. How the baby gets through there, I don't know. Queen Mother should have known that was my grandkid. Excuse me, I'm having a lot of trouble with stuff in my throat. So the grandbaby, you know, you would have thought she would have known, but they just started murdering all these people. And she gets it down to where she thinks that the throne of David is done and there's no more. But God is a God of promises that He keeps. And let me tell you something, folks. He kept His promise. He saved that child. It came down to all but one. 2 Kings gives us insight that we cannot deny when it comes to the Word of God. Satan had made his mission to destroy the seed of Eve and make sure that he, being Jesus, would never be born. But it was a promise from God. He promised Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Judah, and David and Solomon that all the way down that line that it'd be one of theirs that would sit on that throne, or in that seat in the throne of David, that he would be the Messiah. Joseph took Mary as his fiancée. He never understood that Mary may end up bearing the seed of the Messiah for the mother, Eve. But it's what happened just as God had promised. Until that night in the manger, that very first Christmas, it seemed like it was gone. Satan got it down to one child. Now, he grew up and he had kids, multiple kids, and so the line just kept going, and Joseph ended up coming from that line of this one child. Okay? But Satan almost won the battle. He almost won the war. It got down to one. But God protected him. God stood angels in the doors. He stood men of God around that throne for that one child. He protected his Messiah and the seed of Eve. Because God promised the world that seed was going to come from that boy. And it did. It came down to one. God placed Jehosheba in the room, and He helped her to steal the baby away from certain death. God hid him. He hid the baby and his nurse. In verse 2 it said that it was so that he would not be put to death. Specifically, He hid them. God did it. Now, man thinks that it was the baby and the girl and all that they did it, the hiding, but it was God who hid them. He did it so they would not be put to death. He was hidden in the house of the Lord for 6 years. The child was protected by that man named Jehoiada the priest. God rose up a man that loved the Lord to stand in the guard over the child in the face of certain death, and if they were to be caught, it would be over. But Judah had its king. He reigned, I think, 40 years maybe. He had children, and the line of the Messiah went on. But my proposition is very clear, church. God is a God of promises, and He keeps His word. And I think that as a church, we need to understand that. Folks, Christians, as Christians, I need you to know that we can take the statement to the bank. God is a God who keeps his promises. You know, this has come up a couple of times in the scriptures. This proposition. This isn't the first time we've heard this. You know, the proposition is there because it's the truth. It all came down to one baby. Baby that was hidden by the priest, a man of God. God said, I hid him to protect him from death. I did it. How do you deny it? How do you look away from what it is that God promised that he was going to do? And he did exactly what he promised that he would do. We had an overthrow of the throne to keep it pure. The days of Joash, or whatever, the baby here, so that we would all be able to see that even Satan, you know, takes all of David's family out, but God protected the one. We're living in a crazy day and age, and yes, I mean age, the end of age. And we don't see God working in our government much, and sometimes we don't see him working in our lives all the time. We see things on the news about fraudulent votes and dead people voting by the thousands, and not by the hundreds, but by the thousands. One lady even actually said that they've proven that there was millions of dead people who voted. And I don't think they voted for both parties. I think it was just one. And we see this stuff and we think, what in the world's God doing here? Is God not in control anymore? Why are we not seeing? But then we look back in the Bible and we see these times when this queen literally killed off the entire line of David and Solomon and got it down to one child. And God protected us with that one child. So can we be assured that God is still going to protect the church? Absolutely. Absolutely. Romans chapter 13 verse 1 says, every person is to be in subjection to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those who exist are established by God. Man, God is good all the time. He holds authority over all of this stuff that's going on. Now, at this point, we're to subject ourselves to the Constitution, because that's our authority. It's not Trump or Biden or governor that we have here or in Kentucky or any of these and the people of the government. As Americans, we are to subject ourselves to the Constitution of the United States of America according to the verse that I just read, because that's our governing authority. Pray that God leads our nation as well as he did the seed of Eve. That's all we can ask. That's all we can expect as Christians. I don't care what your political party is, guys. I really don't. I mean, I struggle with the fact that we have people that are voting to allow abortion. I struggle with that. But I don't care what your political party is. We're bound to the governing authority, and in America, that is the Constitution of the United States of America. We are bound to it. 2 Kings has been an amazing study to me at this time of trial and hardship. And, God has shown me a lot about how he works in the world. And, I had kind of forgotten some of this stuff over the years. And when I go back and I read and I see the details, you know, I remembered that this was happening, that this one child lived, but it's like, man, I forgot the minute little details that were in the Word when it came to this stuff. But it's amazing how reading the Bible anew, over and over, how you learn from what you had known before, isn't it? I pray that you're reading your Bible book of the month, that you're picking it up and you're delivering that. We're we're getting ready to go into December, so we have a gospel. We always have a gospel in December in the month of Easter. So get out Mark, and you only have 8 chapters to read. It's really simple. Pick up the first 8 chapters of Mark and start reading and get ready. We don't have an account of the virgin birth or any of the stuff in Mark coming up, but I will tell you, we do have an account of biblical truth, and we're going to see that as we come in. We're going to talk about, you know, the church in a box and the different things. So we're going to have some interesting stuff coming up. I really want to encourage you to pick up your Bibles, but I also want to have you pray. You know, I pray that everyone made it to this point in the message, and I'm hopeful for the future of Scottsville Christian Church. 2020 has been a terrible, terrible year. It's been probably one of the worst years I have ever had in my life. You know, I started 2020 with with 5 holes in my back and in my side, and literally on December 31st, I had my lung surgery and had all that stuff taken out of my lung, and I was miserable. That was the first day. It was terrible, and it's not really gotten much better since. But I know God's in control. I get it. Because there's one truth that I know to be a fact. Because I read the rest of the book. And that old devil Satan, in the end, he loses the war. God's going to close it down on him, and he's going to throw him into the lake of fire. He's going to throw all his angels, the ones who've been bound in chains for having sex with the women and just trying to destroy the seed of Eve. All those angels that have been bound in Tartarus and Hades, they're all going to be thrown into the lake of fire at the end of the age. Revelation tells me we win. That's something encouraging to me. It builds me up and it gives me hope. And knowing no matter how bad it gets, God's still in control. And God is a God of promises, and he keeps his promises. And we see that for generations upon generations upon generations. And it was detailed down to the fact that we had one child that saved that line of the seed that God promised. Satan took them all but one, and God protected him. In the words of our president, church, we are winning, winning, winning. May God bless you and keep you. And I believe God said it, and I believe it to be true. And I hope you do too.